In Venezuela, peace and tranquility reign nationwide as citizens prepare for the legislative and regional elections this Sunday, May 25th. In Palestine, the Israeli regime continues to attack Palestinian families across Gaza, killing at least 8 in its latest airstrikes. And the Russian army liberates several towns in Sumy and Donetsk regions amid the special military operation. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Venezuela prepares for the legislative and regional elections this coming Sunday, May 25th. Over 21 million Venezuelans are called to vote in the election of 569 positions, including 24 governors, 285 National Assembly deputies, and 260 Legislative Council representatives. Delegations from several countries have also arrived in Venezuela to observe the elections, including representatives from Turkey, South Africa, Laos, Belarus, Serbia, and Nicaragua. A total of 54 organizations with political aims are participating in the election, including 36 national organizations, 10 regional organizations, 3 national indigenous organizations, and 3 regional indigenous organizations. In this regard, citizens of Tumeremo, the administrative capital of Guayana Esequiba, are ready to participate in this democratic event to elect their first governor after its establishment as a state following the consultative referendum held on December 3, 2023. And in this context, let's take our signal to our headquarters in Caracas with our colleague Ana Marrero to have more details, as she has a very special guest with her to talk about this important election that is going to be held in Venezuela this Sunday. Hello, Ana. Welcome to this From the South. Going to be held in Venezuela this Sunday. Hello, Ana.
The South, we are here in Caracas. We're a special guest, Mr. David McDonald Denny. He's here with us in From the South with a special interview about the elections that are being held tomorrow here in Venezuela. Hello, Mr. David Denny. How are you?
I'm fine, and I'm very happy to be here with you.
Thank you very much. Well, we can start with this interview.
Thanks.
Okay. The first question will be, like, in what context the elections takes place, and of course, the part that are going to be the first time regional elections from the Venezuelan side in Guyana.
Well, my organization, the Caribbean Move for Peace and Integration, endorsed this position by Venezuela to hold an election in that section of Guyana, because we see this as part of an integration process for the government and people of Venezuela. We also see this as a process that would allow genuine independence for the people who are living there, because we are totally against ExxonMobil, which is backed by US imperialism. We are totally against them in terms of the mining in Guyana, because we feel that there should be a greater level of discussion between Venezuela and Guyana as it relates to this area, rather than US imperialism enforcing themselves on the people of Guyana and the people of Venezuela, and also threatening the government and people of Venezuela with military maneuvers in that area.
Yeah, and also you came here to Venezuela as an observer of these elections. Can you tell us a little bit of context of these and how you came here to the country to observe these elections?
Okay, the Caribbean Move for Peace and Integration have a very good working relationship with the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, and the party invited us as an international observer, and we are very happy to be here to be in Venezuela to participate in this process, because when I return to Barbados and the Caribbean, I will be in a better position to report to the people of Barbados and the Caribbean about the positive nature of this election in Venezuela. So far, I had the opportunity of participating in rallies and talking to Venezuelan people on the streets. And tomorrow, election day, we'll get the opportunity where we'll be able to visit a number of the polling stations, and I will speak with several of the political parties there at the polling stations. I will also get an opportunity to speak with the people in Venezuela, so that when I go back to Barbados, I can honestly report on the election in Venezuela that not only means a lot to the people of Venezuela, but the entire Caribbean region.
Yeah, and also here in Venezuela, we have a fight against the fake news and the harsh news that have been made about these elections, about here's no democracy, about here's all manipulated, but here's democracy because the people are directly voting, they're secretly voting for what they want. So what can you tell us about this situation? Because we can see and we have seen that we have here a clear method of vote. You know, we have a clear way of decide ourselves for what we want, but the fake news are saying the opposite.
Yeah, you're correct, because the Western media is spreading a lot of misinformation about the situation in Venezuela in terms of the conditions and in terms of the electoral process in Venezuela. That's why it is so important for us in the Caribbean to have representatives here at this, you know, as international observers, so that we can properly report to our region about the situation in Venezuela. And I must say that the Western media is spreading a lot of negative and fake news about the situation in Venezuela. And we have to find a way to reach our people, especially in the English-speaking Caribbean, so that they will better understand what is happening in Venezuela, because Venezuela is one of our sister countries, and Venezuela is a nation that have always stand in solidarity with our region.
Yeah, and can we go back to Guyana, because what's the significance do you grant to these elections in Venezuela, taking into account that this will be the first time the territory of Guyana Esquiva will exercise the right to the vote?
Well, as I mentioned just now, I told you that this electoral process in Guyana is very important for that area, because it creates the condition for the people in that area to have representation in your National Assembly, one. Two, it also creates the conditions for the people to develop the region as part of Venezuela and as an independent state away from some kind of exploitation by U.S. imperialism. So it's really a people's election that is taking place in Guyana, and my organization, the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration, fully endorsed that process.
Yeah, and now we can move to another important topic, which is the solidarity that Venezuela has taken with the Palestinian cause, with Haiti and also with Burkina Faso, because it's been a sister nation with those countries.
Well, let me say, as I mentioned, Venezuela is one of the leading countries in our region that express solidarity to Caribbean people. When Haiti finds itself in a crisis situation immediately after a major earthquake, it is Venezuela that went into Haiti and helped with the constructing of houses in Haiti for the Haitian people. Cuba have always been there also to extend solidarity with the Haitian people in the area of medicine and academic scholarships. So I fully endorse your solidarity with the Haitian people. Venezuela have also offered academic scholarships to the children of Palestine. You have sent solidarity materials to Palestine. You have stand in full solidarity with the people of Palestine against what is happening to the people of Palestine. And I was very happy to know that Venezuela also have developed a working relationship with the president of Burkina Faso, because when President Maduro visited Russia just a couple of weeks back, both presidents met, and I think that was a very important meeting, because Africa is right now boiling, and the African society is moving in a progressive direction, and we need to develop South-South relationships. And I think that Venezuela can lead that process for our region, because I remember when Venezuela led the process against the free trade areas of the Americas and created a space for our region against that agreement, and you created the Bolivarian alternative, and then you created the Petro-Caribbean agreement that would have benefited many of our Caribbean nations. So for me, this solidarity work from Venezuela is very, very important, especially for small nations in our Caribbean region, so that we are very happy to work with Venezuela. We are very happy for the work that Venezuela is doing in terms of solidarity with Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, and we are very happy with this kind of work, and it's very important work. So for our movement in Barbados, we stand in full support of the government and people of Venezuela, and we are also happy to know that you can do that kind of solidarity work that can help the poor and powerless people of the world.
Yeah, and it's like common to ask, but the relations between Venezuela and Barbados?
Well, so far I can say that, that Venezuela and Barbados have very good relationships, because Venezuela have an embassy in Barbados, Barbados have an embassy in Venezuela, so they're very good working relationships. Venezuela and Barbados have started some trade, in the agriculture industry. So there's some trade relationship between Barbados and Venezuela. There's there's a airplane or travel arrangement between Barbados and Venezuela on Saturdays and Wednesday, where Conviesta visits Barbados and bring people from Barbados to Venezuela and people from Venezuela to Barbados. So in terms of people-to-people contact and working relationship, that's a very good relationship. So for me, I think that there are very, very good relationships between the government and people of Barbados, and Venezuela. And that's something very good.
Well, with these last questions, we have come to the end of this interview, Mr. David, but we were glad to have you here in our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you also, and I'm very happy to be here.
Well, we'll be back to La Habana, Cuba, with From the South and Luis Alberto Matos. We're back to you. From the South, we're back to you.
Thank you, Anna, and of course, thank you to your special guest for all this information, all the inputs on this historical day that is going to happen tomorrow in Venezuela, as Venezuelans would vote in these regional and legislative elections. Let's now take our first short break. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Saturday morning, at least 8 Palestinians were killed and several wounded following a new series of Israeli airstrikes across Gaza. In Al Amal neighborhood, a family of 4, including 2 children, were killed when a drone hit their home. A similar attack on another family home in the Nusayrat refugee camp left 2 people dead and several wounded. The Gaza Health Ministry issued a statement detailing that the toll due to the Israeli genocide rose to 53,822 Palestinians killed and 122,382 wounded. And the Palestinian National Authority has condemned the scale of violence carried out by Israeli settlers against Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. They say Israel is trying to eradicate the presence of Palestinians in that area in favor of settlers with the support of Netanyahu. They also recall recent incidents on the town of Brooklyn where Zionist troops assaulted civilians and burned vehicles. The Palestinian Authority points to these actions as a violation of international laws and norms. Therefore, they urge the international authorities to take on legal and moral responsibility over Israel to stop the escalation of aggression. And several Palestinians and soldiers claim that Israeli troops systematically force Palestinians to act as human shields in the Gaza Strip, sending them inside buildings to check for danger. Witnesses told the media that practices has become ubiquitous in Gaza for 19 months of war. At least 7 Palestinians described being used as shields in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. 2 Israeli soldiers affirmed the use of human shields, adding that the practice sped up operations, saved ammunition, prevented combat dogs from being wounded or killed. Paradoxically, the Israeli military claims it forbids the use of civilians as human shields and blames Hamas militants for the death of civilians in its Gaza offensive, which has killed tens of thousands of Palestinians. And hundreds of Israeli citizens gathered near the Gaza Strip border to call for an end to the conflict between Israel and Hamas. On Friday, demonstrators denounced Zionist aggression against Palestinians, warning that the level of violence could not continue for another day. They chanted peace slogans such as Palestinian Lives Matter and called for peace and equity in the territories following the humanitarian crisis faced by the enclave due to the blockade of basic supplies entering the Gaza Strip. International organizations condemn the Israeli operation. The Russian army liberates several towns in Sumy and Donetsk regions amid special military operation. The Russian Defense Ministry has announced that the military operation successfully advanced, taking control of the Lokniak village in Sumy province in Ukraine. They also say that the southern and eastern battalions occupied the Stupovki and Ostrin villages in Donetsk. The Russian Defense Ministry also reported that the Ukrainian army has lost 1,330 troops in the central front and 280 in the southern front. And in Asia, Golden Dragon 2025 joint exercise, a military exchange event between Cambodia and Chinese forces, moves forward. With more than 2,000 participants, Beijing and Phnom Penh mobilized state-of-the-art military weapons and equipment, including artificial intelligence for combat training, as part of cooperation in the fight against terrorism and for humanitarian aid. Both countries conduct operations on land, at sea, and in the air. Golden Dragon 2025 began on May 14th, providing 4 military exercises at 2 training centers of the Royal Gendarmerie of Cambodia, a country allied with the government of China. Let's now take our second and final short break before we invite you to tune in this Saturday, 8 p.m. Caracas time, for a special interview with St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister Terence Drew. That's 8 p.m. Caracas time, this Saturday, special interview with the Prime Minister Terence Drew, only on teleSUR. We're going to be right back after this short break. Welcome back. Thousands of Panamanians mobilized again this Friday against the repressive policies of President José Raúl Mulino. The coastal avenue of the country's capital was filled with colors and slogans. They accuse the repressive drift of the government of President Molino, who has already imprisoned 2 union leaders and has forced a third to take refuge in the Bolivian embassy. For more than a month, Panamanians have been demonstrating against the approval of the Social Security Fund law, against mining, for respect to national sovereignty, to protection of rivers, and against censorship, hatred, and the criminalization of protests. In this context, the government imprisoned Genaro Lopez and Jaime Caballero, historic leaders of the Construction Workers Union, one of the most important in the country, and forced their General Secretary Saúl Méndez to ask for asylum. And the Bolivian Foreign Ministry announced Friday to be aware of the asylum request presented by Saúl Méndez, leader of the Single National Union of Construction and Similar Industry Workers, before its embassy in Panama. The Foreign Ministry said in a statement that the request is already in the corresponding authority and is being processed in accordance with the deadlines and procedures established by the regulations in force. The ministry also stressed that international relations regarding refuge and asylum remain fully in force between Bolivia and Panama. Soundtrack's leader has been staying at the Bolivian embassy in Panama City since May 22nd. And on Friday in Bolivia, in an address on national television, President Luis Arce announced a few measures and decrees to guarantee a regular supply of fuel and food items across the country. In total, he announced 11 measures and 7 decrees aimed at alleviating the situation arising from a severe fuel shortage. The president, accompanied by members of his cabinet, announced the militarization of the borders, incentive for production, the import of poultry, and he also promised full fuel supply to the central axis of the country. He also announced the creation of a national program to boost corn and rice production and said that as of next Monday, fuel distribution will be back to normal in the departments of La Paz, Santa Cruz, and Cochabamba. And the U.S. government issued a general license to ease sanctions against Syria after U.S. President Donald Trump reached an agreement with a former member of Al-Qaeda who is currently the de facto leader of the country. In this regard, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that sanctions relief is crucial for the country to move forward, increase investments and cash flow. Likewise, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said they are implementing authorizations to encourage new investments. Yet we must remember that the U.S. tightened sanctions amid Syria's war against Daesh terrorists and during the COVID-19 pandemic under the government of Bashar al-Assad. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.